go. What's up, mouth breathers? Welcome back to my channel. This week is trending week on my channel where I'm uploading a bunch of Halloween tutorials based off of things that trended this year. The biggest seasons to premiere this year was Stranger Things. If you're not familiar with Stranger Things, I suggest checking it out. It's only 8 episodes. It's on Netflix, so you have to get a Netflix account, but it's worth it. I think there's going to be a lot of groups dressed up as Stranger Things characters, like the group of kids, and there's going to be a lot of 11s out there. So this is inspired off of 11, better known as Elle. So for 11's costume, I know you can get away with just putting blood in the nose, but when she uses her powers a little bit more, you know, she gets a little bit more bags below the eyes. Sometimes there's veining. It depends how much she's using her powers. So even when she's using her powers, the makeup can be kind of simple, and I didn't want to just leave it at that, just applying blood to my nose and then some, you know, bags below the eye. It would just be too simple. So in this tutorial, I am also showing how to body paint clothes. So this right here is body paint. I'm not actually wearing a costume that looks hella like her clothes. It's all body paint, so if you want to know how to body paint clothes as well, you can go ahead and watch this tutorial. Obviously, I do not expect people to go out for Halloween in body paint, like especially if you live in the area where it's cold. Like I live in Chicago and it gets cold during Halloween. I highly doubt anybody's going to be walking around in body paint. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Please give it a thumbs up if you like it and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll be notified every single time I upload, especially during Halloween. And make sure you check out my other tutorials I already uploaded this week for trending week. Come back tomorrow for another trending topic. With that being said, let the tutorial begin.
So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take a red tone color and you're going to start applying that below your eye, but you're going to apply it in very thin layers so it's not too red, and this is going to give you dark circles as well as redden up the area which you want for 11. It depends how much 11 is using her powers, so if she does something small like when she turns off the fan, all she does is bleed through her nose. At the end, I don't want to give too much away. She uses a lot of her powers, so it's not just a nose bleeding. She has some veins popping out around the skin and then the dark circles. So I'm using a gray tone cream paint to paint on the veins. I'm using a cream makeup wheel. It is by Bethany and it is in Monster, so the colors that are inside of there. Some of the veins I mixed together my gray and deep red cream makeup to get more of a purple undertone. Just didn't want every vein to be gray. Sorry if the footage is a little bit orange looking. I filmed with just one light because this was filmed after I had gotten an eye abrasion, so my eyes were really sensitive to light when I filmed this, so I just filmed with one light instead of 3, which is what I normally film with. I made the veins a little bit more intense than they probably should be. I did that so that it would pop up in camera though. And then I go back with my deep red color and I make sure I get a good amount of it on my brush and I apply it below my lash line to make the eyes look a little bit more red there. Now use a foundation or concealer a few shades darker than your natural skin tone and apply it below your cheekbone. You want to thin out the cheeks. You want to make yourself look like you're sick. When she uses her powers, she's not sick, but like I said, she's drained. All her energy is gone, and you kind of want to show that with the makeup. Now you want to take your fake blood. I'm using the cheap vampire blood that you would buy at the dollar store, Walmart, and I'm using a paintbrush to apply it. That way I don't end up with it dripping all over my face. I can use a paintbrush and be very specific with where I want the blood to be. Honestly, you could just apply blood to your nose and call it a day for your 11 costume, but I just wanted to make mine look a little bit more theatrical, make mine look a little bit more like her at the end. Now use a red eyeliner pencil to line your waterline. I'm actually using a red lipstick pencil because it was all I had, but it's never been used before. You don't really want to use something on your lips and stick that in your eye. Now onto the part I'm sure most of you will not use, but it's interesting to watch. I am using a white paint to start painting on the base color of the collar. I was looking at one picture of 11 so I could paint the clothes exactly how I saw it. So I could get the shading exactly how I saw it, the highlights exactly how I saw it. So I'm painting the collar to lie exactly how it looks in the picture. When I paint clothing, I like to do it in a specific order. Usually I apply the base color of each piece of clothing first. So I applied the white and now I'm applying a blue base color for the jacket. I mixed together a light blue color that is kind of like a light jean jacket type of color. then normally I would apply the base color for the dress. But because I knew this jacket would be a bit complicated because it's a jean jacket, I wanted to make sure that it was going to work before I painted the rest of the clothing on, and then realizing later that it wasn't going to work at all. So I go ahead and I mix together a blue color that's darker than the base color, and I start using it to create shadows and wrinkles on top of the jacket. I used about 4 different tones of blue to paint the jacket, but you want to make sure you at least have 3 different tones of blue. And right now I'm using a darker blue to outline where the collar is. You want the area below the collar to be darker than the collar itself because you want the collar to look like it's lifted from the jacket. There's going to be a shadow being casted from the collar on top of the jacket, and you're trying to mimic that to make the clothing look a bit more realistic. Now I start to apply the base color of the dress. I mix together a pink and tan color because the pink of the dress looks like a warmer pink to me than a cooler pink. So I didn't want to mix any white in with my pink paint. I just used a tan color. To give a lot of dimension to the clothing, you're going to have to do a lot of shading and highlighting. So I'm going to start adding some dimension to the collar by using a very light gray paint. And I'm using it to create shadows, wrinkles on top of the collar. Again, I'm looking at a certain picture of 11 so I can see exactly where these shadows are being created and where the lines in the collar are, and I'm trying to mimic that. You want to make sure some areas of the collar are highlighted and some areas are shaded to add a lot of dimension to the collar. You don't want it to be all shaded or all highlighted. Definitely not all shaded because then you're going to push back the collar. It's not going to look like it's lying on top of the dress. After I use the light gray paint, I use a darker gray paint to add a little bit more shading to certain areas, and then I go in with my black paint and I start using the black paint to define certain areas of the collar as well as the jacket, to define where the collar of the jacket is, to define where the flaps that are like on the outside of the jacket, so basically like where the zipper would be, to define that area and start making these areas look more lifted. Like I said, you want it all to look like it's lying on top of the jacket rather than that's a design with the jacket and it all just like meshes in with each other. Figuring out how to create shadows and where to highlight takes a while to learn. You have to practice a lot. It's not going to come overnight to you, so it's really nice to have a picture to go off of because you can see, like I said, where the natural shadows happen and the natural highlights happen. So it's very, very important if you are not familiar with those things to have something to reference. With that black paint, I wanted to create a really deep shadow that was happening near the collar, so I painted a thick line there, and then right between where the dress and the jacket meet, I've made a thicker line in that area. Now I go in with different colors and I'm going to start adding detailing to the jacket. So I'm using a gray color right now and I'm using it to create shadows on top of the jacket, ones that aren't necessarily blue, to make it look a little bit more realistic. So I'm creating shadows and wrinkles, like wrinkles near the armpits. When you wear something, you know, normally wrinkles in that area, I create that. I also use it to create some wrinkles on the side of my arm, and then I mix that gray paint in with a little bit of blue paint to add more wrinkles on top of the jacket as well. Like I want there to be a lot of wrinkles. You got to add a little bit of that grayish paint on top of the collar as well. Not everywhere though, because it's just going to take away from, you know, like I said, the collar looking lifted. But you still need some shading there to make it look realistic. Obviously this is not going to look super realistic because it is paint, but to make it actually give that 3D effect and to make it look as realistic as you could get it, you need to do that. Now I start to detail the dress. You got to mix together a darker pink color. It doesn't have to be dark, but a darker pink, one that's darker than the base. And I start using it to make these just squiggly lines going through the dress. So if you paid attention, 11's dress has like this ruffle texture to it. It's obviously ruffle, but it's not like the crazy ruffles that I think you might think of when I say that, but it's very subtle. So you're just using a light pink paint to create these squiggly lines. And just like the jacket, you're going to have to highlight and shade the dress. Whenever you are painting clothing, pretty much whenever you paint, you want to do this, but especially clothing, you need to highlight and shade every single piece of clothing that you paint on. So now we are going to highlight the dress. You want to mix a little bit of your pink paint in with white, so it's more white than anything, but you want a little bit of pink in there just so it's not too white, and you use it to highlight the dress. So you just paint in between some of the lines that you painted on, some of the vertical lines. You just add a little bit of that white paint there, just like a little streak here and there, not everywhere, because it'll take away from everything if you just did a whole bunch of white paint on top of that dress. And then once you've done that, you mix together a darker pink color, so one that's darker than the base color of the dress and darker than the lines that you painted on, and you use it to shade around the dress here and there. So you know, you want to probably shade where some of the squiggly lines go inward, if that makes sense, and then shade beside some of the vertical lines. You got to stare at a picture to know exactly what I'm talking about. It's hard to explain what I'm doing now without getting too in detail, but hopefully watching me kind of gives you an idea of what you need to do. But I'm going back with my white paint and my black paint, and I'm using it to detail the jacket. So detail around the collar to give it those denim lines, and then highlight the jacket with my white paint, and this will help it look more lifted. And then I go ahead and I use a white cream makeup as well to highlight. White cream makeup makes it easy to blend in highlights lots of times into your face paint, whereas a white face paint and using it to highlight sometimes is too harsh. The cream makeup, you can really blend it out, whereas face paint, it's harder to blend out. Remember, highlighting makes something stand out and it makes something look more raised. So I use that white paint to highlight the collar that is above the dress and then the collar above the jacket, and this helps those areas look raised. It makes the collar above the dress look like it's lying over the dress, and it makes the collar on the jacket look like it's lying on top of the jacket. And then when you shade, that is pushing something back or creating a shadow that's really going to help these areas look more lifted. So you're going to want to shade using black paint or darker paints. And then you're going to want to use a little bit of black eyeshadow as well, because eyeshadow is much easier to blend than face paint. So I go ahead and I use a black eyeshadow. It's Sugarpill's Bulletproof eyeshadow, which is like the best matte eyeshadow. And I start shading. You want to shade right below the collar on the dress to make it look more lifted. And then you want to shade where your neck meets the collar to make it look like there is a shadow being casted, so that the collar is like lying on over your neck. And then you want to shade a little bit more on the collar that's near the jacket, and then where the jacket meets the dress, you want to shade. You want the jacket to look like it's lying on top of the dress and on top of the dress's collar. Like I keep saying, shading and highlighting is a skill that you have to perfect over time. It's not like you're just gonna get it right away. I don't think anybody gets it right away. You can have an idea of it, but to make it look really, really natural, it's something that you've gotta practice time and time again so that you eventually develop an eye for it. And I don't have like an eye for it. I do best when I'm staring at a picture, and the picture normally helps me. Sometimes I can get it off the top of my head where I should like shade and stuff, but it's still something that I'm learning and something that is kind of hard for me, but you know, practice makes perfect. So obviously my hair isn't blonde, and the only blonde wigs I own are really long. They don't look anything like 11's wig, so I decided to go for the buzz cut that 11 has. So to do this, I use a foundation and eyeshadow that are similar to my hair color, and a stippling brush to stipple on the widow's peak and the sideburns that she has. She doesn't have like crazy sideburns, but you can notice them because her hair does have that buzz cut. A stippling brush has a bunch of individual hairs that are kind of spread out, so that's why you want to use that, and you dip it into your product, and when you pounce it against your skin, it's going to disperse the color pretty much all around the place, and it is going to make it look more like you have little individual pieces of hair growing out of your skin rather than just painting it on, and then it just looks really fake when you paint it on and it's all one solid color. The stippling sponge or brush gives it a lot of texture and creates those little dots that you want.